Welcome to Tapped In. My name is David Figueroa-Martinez of DFM Coaching, and today we're going to be discussing then and now, how Jiu-Jitsu has changed since I started. So this is going to be an interesting one because I started 14 years ago. I was 30. I'm now 44. Things were wildly different, and I can only imagine what someone who started 20 or 30 years ago was like. Jiu-Jitsu competition weren't as big, if I remember correctly. We definitely didn't have like a plethora of like YouTube videos and reels, and social media was not what it was today. We did not have a bunch of like online content that you can digest and study and buy. What we had was not VHS, not, it was beyond that. We had DVDs. And the one DVD that I remember at the time was the Kimura Trap. And I remember that being passed around and people learning off of that. Wildly different than it is now. We just didn't have access to that type of training and that type of information. You relied on your instructor a bit more than you do now. I think now you have the ability to kind of take ownership over your training. We had seminars and they came through, but I don't think they came through as often, and they weren't as plentiful, and there weren't as many big names as there are now. Marcelo Garcia at the time was the shit to me. The thing that was going around, I remember, was again the Kimura Trap. We trained differently than we train now. Night and day between how I trained and how I trained my students now. Back then, we did a lot of drilling. I don't do any drilling. I don't want to say any drilling. I don't do any extra drilling when it comes to my students. I remember we used to have like, hey, you're going to drill this technique for, 200 times. And then when you're done, come see me. I'm going to give you the next step in that iteration. And then you're going to drill that 200 times. And we drilled a lot. At the time, the philosophy was drillers make killers. And everyone was just drilling. Did it make us better? Yes. I think there is a benefit in drilling to a certain extent. I don't think drilling 200 times is necessarily beneficial. I think you need to drill until you learn or understand the technique and what you need to do. Once I have that muscle memory, or I remember exactly what I need to grab and pull and push and whatnot, drilling past that is inconsequential. It doesn't help. It doesn't benefit me at all. So I don't make my students drill extra. And what I mean by extra is we went to class and then we had to drill before and after. It was our homework assignment. So we would come in and we would drill extra. Now, the problem was sometimes we had to balance life or our spouses or responsibilities and jiu-jitsu. So if I had homework and I had to drill this thing for 200 times, sometimes I came in and drilled and then went home. And there was a little bit of an issue with people attending class because they were drilling. And I remember this being an issue, and I remember my instructor being annoyed by that. But I think it was just the nature of the beast, considering what we were being asked to do. So I think there was a plus in it for me, because I think Jeff forced me to understand game planning and game building early, and he instilled that in me, and I understood what it meant and what it meant to put that time in. So I think for my foundation, it was super helpful. I don't think I needed to drill 200 times. So I don't do that with my own students. I think that his approach gave me an understanding of, again, how to build a game plan. And I'll always take that with me, and I instill that in my own students. I think the difference being now with my own students, I don't give them homework in the traditional sense that I had it, which was, hey, go drill this X amount of times. What I do give them is broad homework of, you have to play from bottom on any rounds where you are either bigger or more skilled. and then that forces them to have to play a guard. That stuff I do. I don't assign drilling homework. I don't see the benefit necessarily, especially once they learn the techniques. But what I do want them to do is to focus. I need to work on this every time I roll. And that was something that I took from Jeff, was like, I need to game plan and I need to hit these techniques when I was rolling. So they were my focal point. Whether I drilled or not, that's the one thing that I did take from that was, this is my focus, this is my study. And I remember getting really good at these techniques because we were, again, yes, we were drilling them, but he would piece. Once you're done with that, he'll give you the next piece. And once you were done that, your opponent's going to do this more often than not, and you're going to drill this. So it was like a building process. So I do that now, but just without the drilling aspect. I think that students now have a massive library of technique to play from, different streaming sites, different athletes. There's more athletes than ever before. Just everything is plentiful. You can see every reel on Facebook and Threads and Instagram and anything you think of. The problem being, you get scatterbrained and you have to hone in on what's beneficial to you and not what looks cool. So I think what I didn't have was, I didn't have all this technique that I could pull from. So it made my game be specific and I could focus better. And the students nowadays, because you have reels popping up every time you get on social media of a technique, sometimes you get pulled into directions that you should not take. So I remember telling someone I couldn't imagine trying jiu-jitsu for the first time now. I would get pulled in way too many directions. I wouldn't necessarily build a game that was worth anything, because halfway through building it, I'd want to try this other technique. And then halfway through building that structure, I would have to be pulled into this other technique that I couldn't imagine what that's like now. So while there's a bunch of information ready available for you, if you're not willing to simplify what you're accepting, you have to rely on your instructor to kind of like at least guide you a little bit. Because there's times when a student will come to me and they'll be like, hey, what do you think about this technique? And I'll be like, so it's good, but it's not quite for you right now. And it's not me gatekeeping. It's not me trying to deter someone from experimenting. It's, I know what you've been working on. I need you to keep working on that. And when you get bigger or better experienced, we'll add this other thing. But I want you to focus on what's most pressing at the moment. And that's hard to do. It's really, really hard to do, because you see all these techniques and some of them get really flashy and some of them are connected to what you're doing, but maybe they require a little bit more dexterity and familiarity with your body that you're not quite there yet. And your instructor's telling you, hey, you need to do a little bit more of this before you can do that, but I want to do that. And it's a push and pull, and it's really hard to get through. And I sometimes feel sorry for students these days who don't have that guidance. I remember a student of mine, she went to, I think, a women's camp or something, and she was talking and she realized, and I can't remember specifically how, none of you game plan. And it was a bit of a foreign concept in a way. And I might be misrepresenting this completely, but the way it was told to be, they didn't have game plans or even think of game plans or game planning. And she was one of the few in that discussion, or the only one in that discussion, that I was actually deciding on how to formulate game plans and what techniques to add and what not to add. And that, I think, is how students are being kind of brought up these days, where not all the instructors are involved because maybe the class is big or there's too many students in a program, that you don't get enough guidance. So you're just coming to class and you're just rolling. Whatever they teach you that day, you may or may not add. That's not beneficial, and I think it slows your progress down. What I was lucky enough to get out of Jet's program when I started was, it was a small program. is very, I think, similar to the program I have now at La Mesa in the morning. It's a small program. I'm hands-on with what students are learning and progressing in, and I can suggest things and I can have conversations where, hey, I think this is good for your game, or I think you should hold off on this, or you should push towards this, that you don't get in a bigger program. So I'm not surprised when students say, I didn't even consider building a game plan or a foundation for what I'm doing, and I'm just going out there and I'm rolling. So I think those are some of the differences that I'm seeing now and then. And again, it might be mainly because I was in a small gym and I'm teaching a small program that there's a little bit of difference when I'm looking outward. I'm not so sure. Students, I think, are training better now. I think between, and I know this is hot debated, ecological is a big benefit. Footlocks aren't so hidden. There's so much more cross training. There's so many more, even to a detriment, sources of material that you can reference to. So much material that instructors could reference, and so many workshops, seminars, and just points of like direct contact to other instructors that you can get. Cross training alone, it didn't happen as much when I was coming up. And at the gym that I came to after Jeff's, it was a non-issue, a non-factor, because he was completely against it and he didn't like when you did it. Now, with the culture kind of shifting where students can cross-train regularly, they can go to seminars across town, they can do a seminar when they're out of town, they get whatever it might be. You bring in someone to the gym, you do workshops, like I'm teaching at 3 different gyms right now. I would have never thought that was possible at one point. I'm doing 2 workshops at 2 different gyms and in my home gym. And those workshops are free to outsiders and they welcome everyone in. Unheard of when I was coming up. And so to have that experience where you can, because I have students from other gyms, not associated with mine or the gym that that I'm doing the workshop at, that are coming outside of that sphere and coming in and learning and enjoying themselves. Again, unheard of when I was coming up. That alone is huge. Go where you can train wherever you want. Cross training, open mats, seminars, workshops, whatever you can do, go and do it. That's a massive benefit these days that I wish I had coming up. It just wasn't a thing. One, availability, and then when it was available, it wasn't approved. So it sucked. But I think things are a lot better now. I think we're training better. I think we're training more intelligently. I think the macho, only the tough last is starting to fade away, at least in most gyms. We're just in better spots. We're understanding how to teach better. We're understanding how we should be training better. Our diets are better in most cases. We're understanding more of the psychology with some instructors. So I think that if I was going to weigh the two, there are some pluses when I came up that I'm super happy and proud about that I got to experience. But today's jiu-jitsu athlete has so many more avenues of getting better. They just have to focus. And if you're unfocused, you're going to get lost. It's a giant sandbox with so many distractions. But if you can get focused, or you can trust your instructor to give you that guidance and kind of rein you in, it's a huge asset. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, maybe you're in a tough spot, maybe you're lost in training, or you're kind of like trying to figure things out, or you're in the middle of blue belt blues, whatever it might be. Always available for questions. You can hit me up at dfm.2099 on Instagram and Threads. Or if you want to work with me somehow, remote coaching, video reviews, workshops, seminars, you can hit me up at dfmcoaching.com or my DMs. I'm always available to answer questions. Anything else, please let me know. Thank you so much.